right, here we go on the Sunday night. Why not? Actually, let's give everyone a few more minutes because it's not the normal time we're on, but I have so much on my mind. This story just continues to expand. Let's just give everybody 30 more seconds. If you're on Facebook, you can share that you're watching and notify people. We're live on YouTube and we're also live on X. All right, here we go on the Sunday night. I always just like to double check, make sure the sound is what it should be. And it does seem that way. There's Garney. There's everybody. I know those on Facebook are saying you said you were gonna ride tonight. That is true. And if something breaks, then we'll go and cover it. But there's so much on this, and so much of this as our platforms continue to grow, especially YouTube and X. And, as of right now, we seem to be not the only one, but certainly in the conversation of people that continue to talk about this story and talk about, and this is an important story. Thank you, Tanya, starts it off. I love that. Let me highlight her. Look at that. Keep going. Justice for John, 100%. Can we get someone to match Tanya? Wouldn't that be grand if 10 other people said, I'm going to match Tanya? That would be fantastic. Now, on Facebook, people can send stars on YouTube. So I want to talk, and listen, folks, this is really simple. There's different elements of this. And that is that I get it. Like the what's left of the Karen Reed movement, there's several things that are happening right now. They're telling us, our side, stop talking about it. No one should talk about it. Nope. You don't have the right to talk about it. You're going to sit and you're going to listen to what the verdict was. There should be no more discussion and blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe that's what they want. How does it feel to want? No, we're not going to stop. Now, this week coming up, we're going to be live tomorrow at 4:30, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, not live on the 4th of July, but then we'll be back on Monday. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you very much. How about that? Shannon says, I'll match you and go up 10. I love that. Thank you, Shannon. I'm telling you. Listen, people like the impressions. They like the humor. And we touch on things. Now, it's not all humor. And I fully get, right? People want me to stop talking about it. We're not going to stop talking about it. We're not going to stop talking about it for various reasons. And some of this, I have my own thoughts about this. And I have been consistently saying there's something. Thank you, Catherine. Repost the stream. You can do that on X. I don't know why I didn't think of that. That's right. Share it on X. If you're on X, share the stream. There's something, as I have said, that is very odd about this whole thing. And the more we're learning about the deal that Alan Jackson and Karen Reed have, for me, some things have become clearer. And I think by talking about it, it could become clear to other people. But we are going to talk about it. We are going to talk about it. I don't care. This is an injustice that has happened. There's something odd with the jury. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But let's just step back just for a moment. The Karen Reed movie, notice released on a Friday, late Friday. But there was a lot in that press release. What have we learned? We learned that the partners, thank you, Resist. Look at that. Folks, if you want to be highlighted, look at that. Our YouTube family just continues to pop. Thank you, Resist. The fact of the matter is that we learned that Karen Reed and Alan Jackson have become business partners. And there's going to be a film. Thank you, Lisi. Yes, we are going to do that. And I'm going to talk about that. We have to. We have to. I am not ending. I'm not backing down. And I'm not start talking about it. Thank you, Lacey. To be quite frank, the 4:30 show is actually going to be a Karen Reed show. That's what it's going to be, because I think it's worth talking about. But let's talk about, things are becoming clear to me. And I've been working all weekend and talking to people all over the country. So different people are reaching out to me. And I'm going to say some things tonight. I'm well aware. It's going to be documented. Some of the things, it's total hypothetical, which we're allowed to do. But for me, this whole thing is a little too neat. And I talk about, in those of you that are new, I'm going to use television shows. I'm going to use film as cultural references. Makes it easy to understand. And as I've talked about, in Breaking Bad, one of my favorite shows of all time, Game of Thrones, Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Seinfeld comedy, The Wire. Those are some of my favorite television programs of all time. But between film and television and other real stories, but look at this is just like the first wave. And it all comes back to Alan Jackson. Alan Jackson, very gifted attorney, in from LA. Look at what we learned on Friday. This is going to be an Alan Jackson, Karen Reed project. She's not just a client. She's not just the defendant he's representing. They're business partners now. Alan Jackson, thank you, Tanya. Let me highlight that. Thank you very much. John did deserve better. And we're going to talk about that this week. Thank you, Tanya. So they're more than that. But the more you learn about it, and the more you learn what's really at stake, this is so much more than just a not guilty verdict. Now, many of you may not like Alan Jackson. I have had the privilege of speaking to him in person. That's part of covering the case. I'm just, to me, as I've said, none of this happens without him. He's wildly talented. He's very charismatic. I don't know how that guy lost. And I told him that when he ran for office. You don't find many people like Alan Jackson. But to me, when he represented Kevin Spacey on Nantucket, I think that was one of his first introductions to Massachusetts. And listen, spoiler alert, he was not that impressed. Now, I lived in New York for 9 years in the 90s. And I dealt with people that they were either in New York. I worked for ABC in New York, and they were moving to LA. And I used to travel to LA and do business. Or you'd meet people in LA, they were moving to New York. So there is something to like flyover country, how they consider the rest of the country. Miami's nice, fun, wintertime. Vegas, very exciting. Washington, D.C., very unique. Chicago, it's fine. But there's definitely an attitude of the New York, LA crowd. And by the way, I'm not knocking that. It's just something that there was just a period of time where I was either working with some people that were moving to LA, or I was working with people just moved to New York from LA. And when I used to do business in LA and be out in Los Angeles, by the way, of which I really like, my favorite cities are New York and LA, but they'd always say, so when are you moving out here? I mean, there's just something to that. They think differently. They think differently of the rest of the country. And when I was in New York, they didn't know where I was from. A lot of the people I dealt with, they thought I was a New Yorker. Attitude, the way I talked, the way I handled myself. So, how'd they view Boston? Yeah, Boston's fine. Go Sox. Yeah, my cousin went to BU, or my neighbor went to Boston College, and, Red Sox, Patriots, Celtics, blah, blah, blah. Like, they view it as like, yeah, it's okay. But They don't think of it the way they think of LA or New York, right? LA has entertainment, New York has Wall Street. But let's talk about Alan Jackson. What we're really seeing. Thank you, Judy Fury. Thank you, Judy. Yes. So, but what we're thank you, Jackson. What we're seeing is just small project. Should be back the week about that. Goodness. All right, my fault. I don't think we're gonna have any other glitches. Nobody freak, nobody panic, but just hear me out for a minute. This is going to be interesting. And what intrigues me, it's not just a film. It's going to be a book and a film, and it could be more than that. I now think, the more I look at this, Alan Jackson, who I refer to as AJ, but he doesn't just think of himself as any attorney, and he's not just any attorney. He's not. I think, look at Lisa. Holy cow. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Very strong are the odds on that. Very strong, as a matter of fact. I love that. Vodka OJ is the nickname that Karen is taking. So, but just hear me out for a moment. I want you to just think about Alan Jackson for a minute. I don't think, when I saw that press release and really read it, and I have friends on the West Coast. This to me reads like something much greater. There was a lot in that press release that came out, because what's in that press release is, see, the Massachusetts, no offense, mentality. Hey, I was on the radio in Boston. I covered the trial in Dedham, live in neighboring state. But they think of it as, this is teleprompter boy, right? And the blogger, and it's him and not so fast. That's not how Alan Jackson views the story. Alan Jackson views the story as this story, which is going to be based on a true story, which gives them a lot of latitude, right? It's not 100%. It's just based on a true story. This gives him a lot of latitude. But this is going to be the story of an LA attorney. Prince Charming came in and rescued Cinderella, this woman drowning in corruption surrounding her. This is going to be a story. And I know, some of the people putting comments are even saying, some of the people putting comments are saying, well, I don't, I would hope the O'Keefes are going to, I hope the O'Keefes are going to have some say in this. What on earth would lead you to believe the O'Keefes are, I can't even believe I see a comment like that. What on earth would lead you to believe the O'Keefes would have any say in this? Like, you haven't been paying attention. This isn't about them. No, this is going to be a love story. This is going to be a loving relationship of Karen. I don't know. The O'Keefes, they won't have a say on who plays John. No. This is going to be a love story. She loved this man. And suddenly something happened to him. And she was being blamed, right? Damsel in distress. And an LA attorney heard about it. Very powerful, popular LA attorney heard about it. And flew in to rescue her and save her. And the movie ends with Karen at John's graveside, tearfully. During the relationship, they show Karen playfully with the niece and the nephew, and then suddenly he, something happened to him. And then, it ends that she's at his graveside and she's, tearful. I always promised you I would never stop fighting for you. And to the end, I will fight to get you justice, and then like fade to black. Do you see now where there are people out there that are saying, and they would say this, see, Alan Jackson, and I'm going to talk about the jury coming up, but Alan Jackson, listen, this is a chess player. He thinks he's smarter. He's certainly smarter than Maura Healey. He's certainly smarter than Morrissey. He views Massachusetts as very easy to manipulate. And like now, the Reed family, and these people are doing this, Mr. Reed, they're doing it for free. We can't believe it. He's doing it pro bono. Is he? I'll take what you owe me out of the proceeds of the movie and out of the book deal. And see, that's all part of the script. In the script, he comes in and does it for free. By the way, spoiler alert, there's no room for the Worcester blogger in the Karen Reed, a single voice story. The story of a woman, Erin Brockovich, or whatever it is, Julia Roberts, who fought against the system, who had an attorney who believed in her, who said, I'm going to come in here and do this pro bono. Do you see now the videos of them, the defense team, cooking, music's playing? That's the script. That's all in the movie. That's why the whole element of like the pro bono, it's all part of it. Now, couple of things. I will touch on Teleprompter Boy, right? Three's a crowd. I didn't see Teleprompter Boy. I didn't see the blog. I didn't see his name on the press release. Alan Jackson never really liked him. He was useful, right? But then he got careless. Jackson's very cautious. Alan Jackson, very cautious. And, plays high-level chess. So I think he views him, Teleprompter Boy, as he was useful, but like he served his purpose. You know where they really like him? Behind bars. Quiet, out of the way. I mean, look at what happened. Watch a mob film when they get what they needed. Look at Goodfellas when you're hearing Layla play, right? And then Jimmy, the bodies are turning up everywhere. Or how about in The Town, right? The guy that lets them in, and remember, you never saw me. The guy that gave them the info and then let them in, he's the first one they pop. So no one would be happier if he goes to jail than Karen and Alan. Are you nuts? He's out of the way. He's silenced. They'll do whatever they can to silence that. No, two's company, three's a crowd. Notice that press release. She was drunk. She was a drunkard. I'll go through that. But let's talk about Alan Jackson. Let's talk about a very flattering film. No, we know about the trial, but not everybody knows about the trial. There's international rights. This is an Erin Brockovich type film. It's a feel-good type film. It's a film, by the way, it would be fiction, but the story becomes more about him than her. I don't even think Karen Reed realizes that. By the way, I'm not sure she cares at this point. Karen Reed has a choice. You stick with him, you could earn millions. Film the publicity tour for the film, maybe a series. I'm not exactly sure. Possible a project, book. But let's talk about Alan Jackson for a minute. Think what that means for him. Speaking tour, right? If there were certain people that earn 75, 100,000 for a speech, 50,000 for a speech. I know someone, you want them to speak, 75 grand. You're going to fly them in, put them up, 75 grand. That sounds pretty good. No more courtroom. maybe heavy retainers with his LA law firm, but no more of this. Listen, it's a lot of work. Jury selection, judges, the whole thing. This is phase 2 for Alan Jackson. This is just you're just raking in money. This is just projects, television, film, speaking engagements. You're flown to Miami to speak to a group of lawyers. You're flown to Vegas to speak to some people. You're flown to New York to speak to people. This is very lucrative speaking circuit. Television commentator. This film would make Alan Jackson probably, who's the most famous attorney in the country right now? It was Johnny Cochran. He's dead. You could argue Pam Bondi, but Jose Padilla, who got Casey Anthony and then Aaron Hernandez off. But this is like another level. When you have a film made about you, where you're the hero, that's very, very powerful. So when you look at it like that, because I always think there's a lot of people with this case that they don't look at the right thing. They look at obviously the nitwits that look at butt dials, dog bites. Like they look at the wrong thing. They're like people that go to a football game and they're watching like the cheerleaders, or they're, oh, look at, is that a blimp flying overhead? Like, who cares, right? Or they're, oh, look at that. Oh, are they throwing T-shirts into the crowd? Like that type of thing. A lot of distractions. Alan Jackson lives in LA. Alan Jackson's very accomplished. But we're talking about, like, see, to me, Karen Reed's more than a client. When I was in the courtroom for the verdict, and I was watching them, and I described, you can check my X account. I said, the defense team, they look like lottery winners. I think he now views Karen Reed. She wasn't just a client. She is the golden ticket. She is, I can work with this person. I can really, in Goodfellas, when Maury, he's pestering Henry, and he's like, oh, Henry, this is the caper I've been waiting for. Jimmy owes me the money. Oh, no more nut. Like, this is it. Now I can relax. Maury, and then, he gets in the car, and they get him right in the back of the neck, which is one of the spots that can take someone out instantly. But my point is, like, that, this is, I think, not enough has been written about that Alan Jackson, he sized this up very quickly, and he viewed Karen Reed as, this is not just a client. This is not, hey, glad we could help, keep in touch, This is like a golden ticket. That's how I think he viewed it. Now, stay with me. I'm going to get to the jury. When you look at it like this isn't just he got a not guilty. This is, oh, hold on. Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, that's right. Yes. Look at that, Tanya. Thank you. Hear me out. When you look at it like that, we're not just talking about millions at stake, even though it is millions at stake. People focus on her, but what does he stand to gain? What does he stand to make? Right? Alan Jackson. He's partnered with her. So now we realize the whole thing of the pro bono, and there'd be photos of them out and drinking wine and talking. And by the way, I'll also, spoiler alert, I've never believed this people have thrown out romantic. I don't believe that. Talking about a celebrity lawyer in LA. He could get courtside seats at a Laker game. He could, he knows people in that town. I don't believe that. I know some people have made accusations like that. you're talking about a celebrity LA attorney who, there's a lot of opportunities if you're in LA and you have his kind of money and he's got some fame and so forth. But hear me out. When you look at it like that, and when you really just look at Alan Jackson, again, it's how many films are there about true stories, by the way, of like a real attorney? There's not a lot. We can probably name them. Matthew McConaughey played a couple of films, or at least one. Tom Cruise, Few Good Men. But I'm talking about a real attorney. There was The People versus O.J. Simpson on FX, but there's no real Johnny Cochran type of film. No film on F. Lee Bailey. I'm just trying to think of some attorneys of late. There hasn't been anything like this. So based on a true story, like The Blind Side. That wasn't exactly right, but it was based on a true story. And I think this will be like that, because then you could add in the nefarious thing. And, Proctor doesn't have to be a young guy. Proctor could be a shady looking guy that's been around the block, in and out of rehab. I mean, there's a lot you can do when something's based on a true story and some of the people in the house. So, but you're talking about, obviously, make money on a film, on a book, could be even a Netflix series, possible, I don't know, or some kind of streaming. There's so many different opportunities now. Hulu, Amazon. I mean, there's a lot of options out there. And he is plugged in. He's in LA. He represented Harvey Weinstein. I mean, you meet people along the way. He represented Kevin Spacey. He knows people. So, but we're talking about speaking tour. We're talking about possibly some kind of legal commentary, right? I think he'd be in demand. Let's say Fox News says he's going to be our legal, or whoever. There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of money to be made. He could end up being the most popular attorney, not just in California, not just in the United States. We're talking about the world. Who's the most famous attorney in the UK? I don't know. Who's the most famous attorney in Mexico? I have no idea. Who's the most famous attorney in Scotland? I don't know. Rod Stewart. I don't know. I don't know that many people in Scotland. My point is, when you get Hollywood in the mix, there's a lot of things that can happen. You're talking about fame. You're talking about wealth. We're not talking about making 1 million, right? You're talking about making 10 million, 20 million, and building from there. And when you see that, and you have an opportunity to retain his services, keep in mind, most cases don't go to trial. So, get his law firm, pay a huge amount of money, some kind of settlement, something like that. Now, hear me out. When you think of it like that, I think you go into the area. Hear me out. See, I believe that a guilty verdict with Alan Jackson involved and so much on the line, when you look at it now, thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate that. Yeah, well, I don't know. See how he looks in stripes. Thank you, Lisa. When you look at it like that, a guilty verdict was not on the table. A guilty verdict was not on the table. No, absolutely not. Maybe a mistrial. There's no way. Think of what I just laid out to you. There's no way he could afford or take a chance on a guilty verdict. Like, absolutely not. Impossible. What? No. If there's a guilty on the manslaughter or the murder too, there's no film, there's no book, there's no speaking tour. No. There's no fame. There's no 20 million. There's no, I'm going to live in Bel Air. or I'm going to buy a house in Malibu, I'm going to, I'm not just going to live in LA among the stars. I'm going to be in LA as one of the stars. It's an entirely different deal when you think about it like that. Hi there, Claudia. Now, let's get to the jury. And what I'm going to tell you right now, I don't hear anyone else talking about it. I'm going to talk some fact. I'm going to talk some hypothetical. I'm going to do some impressions. Let's talk about facts. What do we know about the jury foreman? We don't know his name. How many people get to be doing all these interviews? Suddenly he's got a kind of a sleazy PR firm representing him, say the least. Who's paying for that? Someone paying for that? They don't have to tell us. Oh, someone stepped forward, anonymous donor, and paid the fee. So, the PR firm's working with them. So they book his appearances. They shape the narrative. We don't know his name. I don't know his name. I don't know where he lives. You know what I think is also interesting is immediately when myself and others started saying there's something odd about this jury. What do people start? You stop talking about that. That's jury intimidation. That you can't talk about it. You know what? And I admit, I'm not going to go knock on the guy's door. I'm not going to get arrested over something like that. If I have a way to get a hold of him, I'd maybe send an email, something like that. Hey, love to talk to you. I'm not convinced he would talk to me, but it's an odd dynamic that they're kind of off limits. They're kind of off limits a little bit. I think that's interesting. Now, let's talk about, and I was tweeting out this story. What I'm about to tell you, I fully get that some people, oh, I missed one. I did? Thank you, Debbie. From Mana Swift. Do I have to go back? I'll go back at the end. I don't want to lose my rhythm. What I'm about to tell you, some people will say that's impossible. I have two words for you. What I'm about to talk about, and by the way, I'm going to talk about hypothetical. But think what I just told you. See, in my mind, if you're Alan Jackson, this isn't just a case on the line. This is your future on the line. This is your life on the line. This is your shot. Like, this is it. There's not going to be a second one like this. I am telling you, there's no way Alan Jackson was going to risk a guilty verdict. It wasn't going to happen. No way, no how. So, but I want to get to, I did see, I tweeted out some of these stories. 2 top New Jersey crime figures admit jury bribery in U.S. trials. 5 indicted on federal charges trying to bribe a juror with a bag full of cash. Now, this is somewhat recent. This was in Minneapolis. Federal charges filed. 5 people, recent attempt bribe a juror, help secure a not guilty verdict trial over $250 million fraud. Federally funded child nutrition program. The juror, identified as only as Juror 52, called 911 to report the attempt after a gift bag containing $120,000 in cash was dropped off at her front door earlier this month. The FBI was involved in this. I want to repeat that. Juror 52 called 911. A gift bag with $120,000 was inside. So for those that say, oh, that can't happen, that's ridiculous, that cannot happen. 2 words, Butler, Pennsylvania. Don't tell me it can't happen. Because last summer, a 21-year-old, 19-year-old, whatever the frig age that kid was, that worked at a grocery store, or a hardware store, I don't remember, climbed up on a roof and almost took out a former president, the Republican nominee, and the current president. So, lose the "that can't happen" BS, because that's what it is. Don't tell me that type of thing can't happen. Think of the great line in Godfather 2. What does Michael say? If history has taught us anything, is that you can kill anybody. No, that's really not what I'm going for. But my point is, for those that I want to find, actually, I'm going to pause for a moment. And I appreciate Debbie. Said Manna Swift. Nope, that's not it. I don't know how no, thank you, Shannon. I'm going through some of the other ones. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, okay. Why the silence? I don't know. Why Maura Healey? I have no idea. I'll say this. From what I understand, I think they are, as some might say, Karen, read it out. But just stay with me for a moment. Now I'm going to talk hypothetical. Because I don't need any legal problems. And I'll be attacked. But I'm not attacked if we're just talking hypothetical. Now, the story I read you, that is true, by the way. And let's use that as a jumping off point. Now, Juror 52, Minneapolis. Someone appears at their door and drops off $120,000 in cash in a gift bag. Now, let's play that out. That particular person, I don't know that much about Juror 52 in Minneapolis. That's a true story, by the way. You can Google that. But that particular person called 911. That's one option, right? What if Juror 52, what if they didn't call 911? Let's play that out. What if they went into court and never said a word? Nope. What does that tell you? Number one, whoever dropped it off, right? They're watching. The person's not saying anything. Let's say Juror 52, I'm going to stick with, thank you, Voice of Reason. I appreciate that. Thank you. And you restore my faith as well. Thank you. I truly appreciate that. But let's play this out. What if Juror 52, this Minneapolis case, what if they don't say anything? What if they go into court? They're a juror. Good morning, everybody. Was that coffee fresh? I think. Don't say a word. All right. The people that left, the 120,000, and this is a real case. This did happen. This was a federal case in Minneapolis. But let's just say the person doesn't say anything. And then let's play out two options. One, the juror still votes guilty. Well, I would be willing to bet that somehow anonymously a video appears somewhere of the juror receiving a gift bag with 100. Can you imagine 120,000 in cash at your doorstep? The juror votes guilty. Well, I bet they have a video of it. And that video gets leaked. Whoa! A member of the jury, some anonymous person, gave the money, need a new trial. So they get out of it that way. However, let's look at option B. As Mike would say on Better Call Saul, carrot and the stick. I prefer the carrot. Let's say instead that person, they just go along and they vote not guilty and they keep the 120. Boom. So a couple things happen here. Juror 52. This is a true story, by the way, in Minneapolis. I did put this on X. 5 indicted on federal charges trying to bribe a juror with bag full of cash. This was last June, as a matter of fact, June 27, 2024 in Minneapolis. It was a huge fraud case. But the people that tried to bribe juror 52 with $120,000 in cash. Why would you try to do that? Because there was a lot of money at stake. And if you have 250 million, what's 120,000 to try to get out of it? Because nothing good happens if you get a guilty verdict. So the other thing that happens, and many times in these situations that people don't realize, is if the juror doesn't say anything, they're compromised. Now they own them. This happens a lot. Many times, especially with organized crime, individuals like that, they say to someone, it's just going to be this one time, or we just want to scare them, or whatever. But however they get them to go along, well, then there's no getting out of it. Now they have them. Now there's trouble if they try to get out of it. Now, that is a true story. You can Google it. Happened in Minneapolis last year. So my point is, don't tell me, oh, that's impossible. Oh, there's no way. I don't know. What if somebody was presented $100,000 in cash? Listen, everyone would like to think, well, I would do the right thing, like this person did in Minneapolis, called 911. But, what if they got a note and they got a certain amount? I'm going to lower it, 10,000, right? Hypothetical again. Total hypothetical. I'm just a follower. I'm not related to the individual on trial. Here's 10,000 reasons to find that person not guilty. And if you do that, there's 90,000 more reasons to follow. Again, the trick is the next day. If they say something, they go to the judge, Your Honor, this money was presented to me. I don't know who the person was. It was a female, handed me an envelope, said my name. I don't know what it was. Then they left. Thank you for telling us that. You're now excused. You're out of the mix. Let's talk to both sides. We don't know anything about it. All right, we continue. The next alternate, you're on. I mean, that's what would play out. Period. End of story. But the big tell would be the next day. If the person shows up and doesn't say a word, we're in business. Either way, you're in business. Either way, because if they don't say anything, then you got them. Let's just say, again, with a hypothetical, total hypothetical, as I said, the person doesn't say anything, keeps the money, and then comes in with a guilty. Well, suddenly there's a video online of that person receiving an envelope with cash. Number one, they're in trouble. Number two, sounds like we need another trial. This comes back to that a guilty verdict is out of the question. Absolutely out of the question. But if you really play this right, you get a not guilty. And then the real bonus is people start, again, hypothetical, but let's just stick with Minneapolis. Juror 52, 120,000 in a gift bag. Again, let's go back to Breaking Bad. That's where you see that type of money. Saul's in his office, right, with Walt or Jesse. So 120,000. So the bonus would be if that juror who persuaded the others, I am positive, this is a Minneapolis trial, positive that person is not guilty. The extra bonus is, how'd you like to make, I don't know, 30 extra grand, 50 extra grand, cash? Here's the script. You're going to do a couple interviews, and all you got to do is read that script. That's it. And you're home. And the person in Minneapolis now, right, Juror 52, does an interview. I did not believe the evidence. Nope. That person, they are innocent. They have the wrong person, and they need to find the real person. But I reject people that say that's impossible. That could never happen. Well, Butler, Pennsylvania. How old was that kid? 19, 21? Climbed up on a roof and almost assassinated a former. That was last July. So I don't believe that, like, it can never happen. What's the Commonwealth doing about it? I don't think they're doing anything about it. I think Governor Healy is a disgrace. Governor Healy, well, the jury has spoken. That's bullshit. This cannot stand. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I think there's something odd about this whole dynamic. There's something, I think there's more to this. And then when you step back and really look at how much is at stake, this isn't just her going to jail. It's not about that. No. This isn't about if it was manslaughter and Karen Reed goes to jail for 5 years. No. Much more than that. This is about fame, fortune. I mean, right? Like winning the table, wiping the table. Think of Wall Street when Michael Douglas, Gordon Gekko gives Charlie Sheen, Bud Fox. Thank you, Tanya. I know there is a lot more to come out. When Gordon Gekko, Michael Douglas, thank you, Tanya, says we're not talking about 500,000. We're talking about 10 million. We're talking about 50 million. We're talking about 100 million. We're talking about being liquid and being a player. This was not about Karen Reed in a friggin' manslaughter case. Look at you. She did. Canoni picked the jury foreperson before anybody was chosen. Very odd. Very odd. I also want to mention something. This jury foreperson, thank you, who we're not supposed to know the name, not supposed to contact. I saw that individual. How did I see him? He sat on the end. He never took a note. I literally saw him when Alessi was speaking, head against the wall, looked like asleep. He was chosen. I'm not trying to be mean to the individual, but what would be a reason? I'll ask you guys, what would be a reason that someone doesn't take notes? We can talk about it. Why can't we talk about it? It's just speculation. Let's come up with some different reasons why someone would not take notes. I'll start. If you don't have a pen, you can't take notes. Who's going to come in next? I'll go another one. If you don't have paper, let's just think basics. Just think whatever. Think of what was the show with, it used to be Richard Dawson, Family Feud. Like you just pop what pops into your mind. He made up his mind already. Okay, possible. That's possible. What would be a reason? If there's any teachers that are watching right now, let's just think anything that pops into your mind. If there was someone who was not writing things down, someone with, let me read this. Yes, there is. I know we're not listing. Possible. Jeanette, if you're illiterate, if you would have hear, if you had a hearing problem, you're not writing things down if you can't hear well. If you couldn't see well, you'd probably have trouble writing. So Jeanette is right. If you were illiterate, you wouldn't write things down. How come that person's not writing things down? Because they don't know how to write. They don't know how to read. How come that person's not? Wendy Murphy gave an example. There was a guy that just sat there, didn't say anything on a trial, and at the end they found out he didn't speak English. I'm just totally thinking out of the box. Someone illiterate, that would be someone who didn't write things down. She does always pick number one. That's right. Dyslexic, that's possible. Yep. Can't write. Very possible. Who said that? Nancy. Yes. Can't read. Hey, that would be a reason. We're just coming up with reasons. I know that other people are going to watch this, and there could be another crucifixion here, but I'm just, why can't we talk about things? Why can't we talk about things? That would be a reason. If someone didn't have a pen, you wouldn't write things down. I think there were pens available. If you didn't have a piece of paper, you wouldn't write things down. If you couldn't read or write, you would not write things down. Yep. I've heard that on the last one. I don't know if it's like every time, but definitely the last two. Can't write, rely on other notes is another good one. Yep. That's a really good point. There was one person that was like a stenographer, always writing every word. And to me, they like if that was class, they misunderstood the assignment. You're not supposed to write everything. You're supposed to be listing like, okay, that sounded important, and write something down. That's true. If you had your mind made up, that would be another reason you would not. If you already did your homework ahead of time, possible. One single voice. That doesn't sound like a mob. That doesn't sound like a mob. No, this is a love story. This is a love story. This is about a woman who was in love with this guy. There was talk of marriage. There was laughing and playing, her helping out with the kids. And one night, he was, what? I'm being blamed. What happened here? We were supposed to get engaged. And then this attorney flew in from LA. That's the story. That's the story. There's nothing about mobs of overweight people wearing pink saying, I mean, maybe eventually there's some cameo in that. So now, not writing things down, a gift bag. I don't know. Possible. Someone, just think of a student in class, maybe not writing things down. Could be someone like tired, not paying attention. Those are all things. Okay. He may have been able to take it all in and not notes. Maybe recapped when he went home. Well, Terry, now the only thing is you're not supposed to talk about it with anybody. So, and you're surrounded by people who are taking notes. You're encouraged to take notes. I'm just taking it in. You're not watching a game at Fenway. We're not talking about, people score the game. Possible. Yeah. I don't think he does, Sonia. He needs to work on his looks for being number one attorney in the world. I don't think that matters. I don't think it would matter. Thank you very much, Smart Scan. Yep. Because, and I appreciate that. Folks, we're not even talking about that. We're talking about who would play him in the film, right? Like he's in Hollywood. He's the real thing. He would be the real thing. He'd get to pick something like that. I have no idea. Maybe Brad Pitt. They're probably right around the same age. But now, I find it odd. But in this story, now something else, by the way. I kind of like where I ask something, then we all talk about it. I like this. I'll say this. Now, here's the other thing. Sarah Jessica Parker should play Karen. Possible. I don't know. I have no idea who they'd be thinking of. If that's the right person, it's possible. I don't know. I don't think she does a lot right now. I think you want, if someone's younger, you can always make them look older. So I don't know how old she is. If in film, if someone is 40, they could play some 50 or 60, but they never get someone who is 50 to try to get them to play 40. So now Karen was what, early 40s when this happened? I would think they want an actress who is late 30s, maybe early 40s, something like that. That'd be my guess. I have no idea how old Sarah 45, but again, this is based on a true story, so you don't have to exactly do it that way. But here's something else that again, I don't hear anyone else, folks. If I'm gonna go live and you're gonna watch, which is happening right now, you deserve to hear it. Like, hey, tell me something I'm not hearing somewhere else. So, one example is, and let's see, I know a little bit about entertainment. I have friends in the Los Angeles area. I have, and I've talked with them this a little bit, and I've been on, television shows before. I've been in a movie, but one thing I know is there's not a lot of, if there's a lot of films out there, the value of one film dips down. So there will be a Netflix film. Jennifer Aniston's too old, actually. Again, I don't know a lot of actresses in their late 30s, but it'd be someone there. But just stay with me now. And then I'll do some impressions, which people seem to like. But there isn't room for two pro Karen Reed films. There isn't room. The film that I believe is going to be made is the Alan Jackson Karen Reed film. But there isn't room for two of them. So now there is a Netflix project that's in the works. And I believe that focuses more, that's not so flattering to Karen. And that talks about how witness intimidation, they went after these people, trying to point the finger. They're the ones that did it. Now that's definitely happening. But as far as what people need to understand is there's a lot of ways that entertainment projects can get delayed. There's licensing problems, there's distribution problems. So there's other people out there, and there's other people out there that may say, yeah, I'm going to do a movie. Well, we'll see about that. See, I view that as, is Alan Jackson, is he going to allow someone else to put out a film? Thank you, Lacey. Thank you, Lacey. Let me show that. Jury was assembled on Thursday. Trial didn't start till the next Tuesday. Defense would all to reach out, corrupt as many jurors as possible. It doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot. But just here's the thing. There's in entertainment, thank you, Lacey, there's a lot of projects that never see the light of day. There's a delay, there's an editing problem, there's an audio problem, there's a licensing problem. Oh, well, now we have a distribution situation. There's a lot of things. Are you kidding me? Most entertainment projects, most people that I know that have worked on film, in film, they always say, many times, most of the time, that it was just a miracle that the film actually was completed and released, because there's so many different hurdles that can happen. Therefore, I don't believe it. If there's going to be a film out about Karen Reed, it's going to be a single voice, Alan Jackson, Karen Reed. So, and I get it. There's people out there, oh, so-and-so is going to have a movie, and this one's going to have a movie. I don't. That's right. There are strikes. That's right, Rose. There's a lot of things that can happen. Are you kidding? So, and then you got to look at who's got the leverage, who can pick up the phone. And suddenly there's, I don't know, we're just having a problem with distribution and blah, blah, blah. Now it's another delay, and then it's another delay. Claudia likes that. So you hope this movie never comes out. I don't know what you're talking about. I believe, unless there's a different narrative, that um, let's see. Oh, okay. I didn't realize we had some people out here. Um, well, just trolls. It's just the trolls. So, no, that's a real bulletproof vest. That's a real bulletproof vest. My point is, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and there are people that don't understand. There's really not room for two. Maybe room for one movie. But now notice also the Netflix. That's not this love story of a woman, damsel in distress, where this LA attorney comes in and, works pro bono to get her out of this corrupt mess. So there's the Netflix special, my understanding. It's a very different story of what happened. And it talks about more. It's, from what I understand, it's more the underbelly. I don't think it portrays Karen Reed in a very positive light. Now, that's an angle. That's an angle. That's a different film, but it's a completely different angle. I believe one single voice, the story of Karen Reed, with Karen and Alan Jackson, Karen Reed and Alan Jackson. I think that is, thank you, thank you, Tanya. Tanya's a fan. We'll tell her that. That's exactly right, Tanya. Now, Tanya is very brilliant. Thank you, Tanya. Now, see, here's the thing. They want to try to get it made. They want to try to get this thing in production. Why? Because the narrative can change. Let's go back to the Minneapolis story. Let's go back to the Minneapolis story. Let's go back to Juror 52. 120,000 lands in a gift bag on the doorstep. That happened in Minneapolis. Juror 52 picked up the phone, called 911. Let's, for the sake of our purposes on this Sunday night, let's pretend they didn't call 911. Let's say they, under the mattress, safety deposit box, whatever. So now they have 120,000 in cash. Well, suddenly they go to the casino. Suddenly they start drinking a lot. The wife starts telling the sister, "Oh, we got all this money." Suddenly the neighbor notices. That's odd. They seem to be purchasing a lot of things. They're going on trips. Suddenly the couple starts fighting. Somebody gets a DUI. And then, somebody gets in trouble and says, "I have something I can give you. Right? The line of police. Tell me something I don't know." I know my neighbor suddenly had a lot of money, and I know my neighbor was a juror on that case in Minneapolis. See, it's the afterwards. A lot of things can go wrong. Over time. We're not talking about overnight. 3 months, 6 months, a year. Maybe Juror 52 in Minneapolis goes back to those people and says, "Guess what? I want another 100K, or I'm going to tell everyone what happened." I mean, a lot of things can happen. Who knows? Maybe Juror 52 has all this money, and then, whatever. If it's a guy, suddenly, he's got a new side piece around the block, or if it's a girl, it's a female, suddenly there's a guy at work. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen when things like that. And so things then can take a different path. But I believe, number one, let's all agree that the Boston media, tragically, has completely dropped the ball on this story. In Boston media circles, this whole thing is viewed as a feel-good story. Isn't this great? Oh, it's so good. Oh, Karen got it. She's free. Free Karen, that type of thing. And, and the juror, I mean, the guy is just so brave. He didn't have to take notes. And he's saying she's innocent. Kent Confidential, they're like emotional. Oh, this is so wonderful. Governor Healy, this is good for the whole state. It doesn't matter that it's all friggin' made up, right? And that's none of it's true. But I repeat, these two that have come forward, Miss Brazil and whoever the non-note taker, if you check their notes, what they're saying, it's almost verbatim. If you just listen to what they say, it's almost like they're reading a script. It's almost like they're reading a script. Thank you. Let me see that. Mandy Strong. That's possible. I don't know. That's another reason, though, for them to, that's a very good point. That is another reason why to continue this narrative of she's innocent. I was speaking with some different attorneys that I know over the weekend, or actually since last week, and everyone says the same thing. And there's an attorney that I really respect who's very talented, and he said, of all the trials, I've never had a juror say, I think that person was innocent. They may say, they just didn't prove the case, or I just didn't think it exactly happened, but they've never said that. Like this. It's so unusual. And look at the people dropping the ball. The Boston Globe, right? The Boston TV stations. Now, I recognize a lot of people. That's true. Free Karen Reed has to continue with the civil trial. The civil trial is different. It's more in deposition. There will be a jury. The cost of the trial. I mean, as if you would focus on that. There's something odd about that. I think you're exactly right, Andy. There's something very unusual about that. Civil trial's different. We don't know when it's going to happen. And again, I know some people want to talk about teleprompter boy. I'm telling you, I think it starts to take on an element of irrelevant. This is about Alan Jackson and Karen Reed. On YouTube, somebody put a comment when I mentioned Karen Reed, the movie. They said, well, I bet Yannetti's a silent partner. Well, no, there's no such thing. You're confusing if there's an investor and they're the silent partner. That's not what this is. I bet Yannetti's getting a percentage. He's probably a silent partner. Well, that would be tax evasion if he was getting money. No, his name was not on the press release. This is an Alan Karen project, right? 2's company, 3's a crowd. You don't need the rest of them. Yannetti, Alessi, they can now go on, look at people know who you are, the whole thing. But no, they're not. What? They're not. And I'm not trying to be mean to that person, but I like that. I'm sure Alessi's a silent. Yannetti's a silent partner. Well, that's when someone's investing in something, and then maybe someone's a silent partner. They're being paid. So no, they don't need. It's a need. They don't need them. They don't need them. They needed them for the trial, kind of, but they don't need them on this project. No, they're cutting loose of the whole thing. They understand they need to couple hurdles, right? They have to get Karen past the civil lawsuit, and I'm glad people are mentioning that. That could not look good. She's got the deposition. You have to take the stand in a deposition. I think a lot of people misunderstand when people say, I would just take the fifth. You can only take the fifth if you've committed a crime or you're being investigated for committing a crime. You can't just walk up and say, I'm taking the fifth. It doesn't work that way. If you take the fifth, you're basically admitting to a crime. Now, the crime still has to be proven, but I saw someone post, someone contact me, and don't worry, if I'm asked, I'll just take the fifth. Well, you can't do that unless you actually have committed a crime. You can't just say that to get out of something. But that is, thank you, Tanya. They had no major national news interviews. Well, he did the Today Show. The foreman did the Today Show. But what I know about that was the the people from Dateline NBC that are also the Today Show. There's two women, Marianne and Sue. They were 100% free Karen Reed. They were 100% in the defense pocket. They were fully on board. They're more under the guise of there's no money to be made if she's found guilty. So they were, it's like roulette. They were putting all the money on red or black, whatever. But they were like, no, there's no win if she's found guilty. We'll take our chances with that. I think, David and Bob, right? Yeah, no. The only interest is, thank you, Tanya. Sorry about that. The only interest would be really on a national level would be Karen Reed and Allen. But the more interviews you do, it dilutes. It's not as valuable. They want a platform that they control the narrative. They want a platform where they're controlling all aspects of it. They don't want to go into, the moment you start doing certain interviews, it can spiral or you could go off message. That's why I think they're going to tell their story in a way and shape it that it matches what they want out there. But the wrongful death, that is a hurdle. That kind of throws things off a little bit if she's found guilty. But it would be, they'll get there. By the way, there's a number of people who, you got to wonder when Alan Jackson was talking to that little snake from Arca, Wolf, when he was, and that guy's so smug and he's so unlikable, you got to wonder, were they also handing out IOUs, right? Were they handing out, have you ever been in a film? Have you been in a feature film? What if I told you that you could be featured in a Hollywood film, professionally produced, about this case? How does that sound to you? Won me at Scram. I say that a lot. Beat it. Scram. Yes. I think there's some IOUs out there. I think there's some people. Hey, for all we know, maybe there's a cameo in the film. Again, I don't know. Hypothetical. Maybe a juror. Maybe two jurors. How'd you like to be in a movie? How'd you like to be a star in Hollywood? How would you? That's one way to get people their eyes like, what? Whoa. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds real good. So you could see where someone would say, all right, if I go in and say what these people want, I get a thank you for coming and a pat in the back. I go with this crew, who knows what could happen. So I think, for those that are just tuning in right now, I really think you have to look at this as, the more I look at it, the idea that he was going to get a not guilty, that he was going to get a guilty, it's not even in the discussion. A mistrial's better. A mistrial's better. Let's just say, thank you, Newton. Let me go to that. It's only for 50,000. Thank you, Newton. I've also heard that. I find that hard to believe. I'll try to get that confirmed. I've only been paying attention to this trial. So, and sometimes people float that out. That sounds low, But I mean, normally it would be a lot higher, much higher, but I'm going to find out. But thank you, Newton. Let me also, Mandy Strong too. If Judge Cannone doesn't report agent to the bar, sanction him for the intention violation. So, Mandy is exactly right, as a matter of fact. And they both need to be, he and Yannetti, both need to be sanctioned. But what does it tell you that he was not kicked off the case? What does it tell you that they allowed Arca to testify? They allowed Marie Russell to testify. I'm telling you. And listen, I live in the Northeast New England. I mean, I'm 45 minutes from Dedham. But to me, Alan Jackson was laughing the whole way back to LAX. Like, these people are so easily manipulated. Like, I can do anything, right? Like, Arca deleted text messages and deleted things. They were communicating by signal. And she still let them in. Marie Russell has never testified as a dog expert in her life. I was in the limo with Mr. Alecci. Exactly. And nothing happens. No matter what they did. Jackson must have been like, you can't believe this judge. No matter what we do. I want to just mention one thing. If you think you're going to lose, better to get a mistrial, right? If you're going to lose a game, better to get a tie, but don't lose. You can't lose. Losing was not an option. Guilty on manslaughter or murder 2 was off the table. Here are the options: not guilty or mistrial. But it's how you approach it. It's the mindset of how you approach it. And how you approach it is, there's no, you know what the rules are? You know what number one rule is? There's no rules. There's no rules. However we get from point A to point B, that's the rule. Mandy, Judge Cannone sent a message, there are no rules. Mandy Strong, either you're an attorney or you're very astute. But she is a problem. She was a problem. Part of that, and I don't know how many people are in the Northeast or some people around the country, but a big problem, and maybe some of you are in different parts of the country, a big problem I can speak about Rhode Island, Mass, and Connecticut. And as a matter of fact, New York and New Jersey. People wonder, gee, why are the judges in Texas tough? Why are the judges in Georgia tough? Why are the judges in the Carolinas tough, right? Well, in the Northeast, let's just stay with New England, Rhode Island, Mass, Connecticut. Where do the judges come from? Normally, well, actually, totally, they come from the Democrat-run state houses. If you want to be a judge in Massachusetts, it has to be approved out of Beacon Hill. Well, you don't have a lot of Republicans on Beacon Hill. You don't have a lot of conservatives on Beacon Hill. And even if you do, they're not being made judges. Look at Rhode Island. People say, what's with these Rhode Island judges? They're all so liberal, progressive. Police are always telling me, God, that guy was locked up. Suddenly he's back on the street. Well, who's passing and making the judges? It's all Democrat progressive. And on top of that, at least Rhode Island and Mass, a huge number of criminal defense attorneys are also legislators, whether it's Beacon Hill or Smith Hill in Rhode Island and in Connecticut. Well, as a result of that, they keep the laws very light and in favor of the criminal defense attorneys. So say a state like Florida. Now, Florida, capital Tallahassee, and Florida state government is controlled by Republicans. As a matter of fact, Florida Tallahassee government is controlled by conservative Republicans. Therefore, the judges that are made coming out of there, nominated, process, blah, 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 well, they tend to be tougher because they're more Republican. Texas, do you think a Texas judge would put up with all this stuff? Do you think a judge in Texas would have said, let me get this straight. You were communicating with that guy, a witness, on a Signal app, and there were hidden payments, and then this little stooge from Arca, deleted all the texts. Here's what's going to happen. Number one, hey, Stooge, hey, little Arca boy, you're not testifying. Number two, you might as well head to the airport because you're flying back to LAX because you're not going to try a case in this courtroom. She didn't do that. She let the case get away from her. She was too focused on, to me, Judge Cannoni, she was too focused on, like, this is going to be a 6 to 8 week trial. But, like, what's the point of that? If it's, like, there's more important things other than we're running ahead of schedule, we're on schedule, we can have the day off because we're on schedule. A little more to it while we're in session. I think she lets a lot of stuff go. And you can't let it go with that crew. They take advantage of that stuff. But what I want you all to know also, by the way, is, but it wasn't your imagination. Hank Brennan did a brilliant job on this case, 100%. And I think, we're never going to know. I don't think. But the way the jurors were speaking, the way so far, the jurors that have come out, at least the two most popular, Hank's great. It doesn't fit what went on in the courtroom. Thank you, Denise. It just doesn't fit what was going on in the courtroom. That's not true. Hank never provided a collision. These people just make things up. They're impossible to try to communicate with. They just are. And they just, for whatever reason, want to communicate with me. And I have no interest in communicating with them. I'm telling you, it's the same as, how do you have a conversation with someone's like, listen, I'm just telling you the earth is flat. As I'm driving along and I look, I can tell. No one's fooling me. I like this line. You'd be insane to think the earth is round. It is what it is. You can't argue with them. It's like arguing with a barking dog. So, but what it really stands out to me, the more we've heard some of these jurors, is, number one, it sure sounds scripted. Number two, the fact that they're taking shots at the prosecution, that sounds very personal. That sounds like the juror 11 said something like, yeah, I think he ought to stick to being a criminal defense attorney. How would she know that? Hey, honey, you stock fucking shelves at Target. How do you know? Like, somebody wrote that line. I think you ought to stick to being a criminal defense attorney. Like, what? I've never heard the cockiness, the arrogance. Where does this come from that they're talking that way? Like I've said, I think there's something odd. And I think NBC Boston, who again, I mean, what can I tell you? Anyone that would air Canton Confidential, let's listen. Anyone that would present Sue O'Connell as she's an unbiased courtroom insider, like, that's insanity. At least with Court TV, I was very upfront with them. And they didn't try to disguise it. I was like, I do not believe the 15-person conspiracy. I don't believe the basement. I don't believe the Google search. I don't believe any of that bullshit. Okay. If you want to have me on, I'm going to tell you what I see, but just so we're clear, I don't, and they said that's fine. But, like, what should you expect with NBC Boston had a picture of the jury foreman and said, Karen Reed is innocent. I mean, that sounds like someone paid for that. But the more you think of it, any station that would have Sue O'Connell as the unbiased courtroom insider, would be seen talking to the Reeds. She's 100%, or was, free Karen Reed. As I've said, it would be, you watch politics, you watch some of the Sunday shows, you watch CNN, Scott Jennings, CNN If you watch CNN, they don't say, here's Scott Jennings, he's a unbiased political. No, he's a Republican through and through. And then they have who's that guy? I know I'm blanking because I really don't watch a lot of those shows anymore. But Van Jones, who's on CNN. They don't present him. He's a middle of the road political insider. No, he is a liberal, progressive Democrat. And they don't hide that. And they put, they put Scott Jennings on with him, and it's balanced. Or if you watch The Five, there's that girl Jessica. She's like that seat one over from the end on that side. That's, Judge Jeanine would be on the end, and then the Democrat, and then Jesse, and then Dana, and then Gutfeld. So, but if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, number 2 is always the Democrat voice. So, but at least like they're upfront about it, right? With this business of Canton Confidential, Sue is the unbiased courtroom insider. It's laughable, is what it is. It is. It's ludicrous. Now, first of all, I want to thank everyone. Obviously, people I think we all like this, right? Thank you for the super stickers. Thank you for the super chats on Facebook. Thank you for all the stars. Now, remember, if you're watching on X or some of these other platforms, look what's scrolling beneath me with the Cash App and Venmo. Now, this week, each weekday, 4:30, guess what the topic is? And I also want to be very clear. As I was putting out, no one's forced to watch. You don't have to watch. I know somewhere online there are discussions, chats, shows on hockey. I don't sign on. Thank you, Pat Brooks. Look at that. I don't sign on. Thank you. That is fantastic. Thank you, Pat Brooks. You are appreciated. I don't sign on to a hockey chat and be like, what are you talking about? Stop talking about hockey. The season's over. I don't watch. But it's not like that with the ignoramuses, right? The hagbag. Listen, this is a non-hagbag show. I can't stand it. You can't talk to them. They have no idea what they're talking about. And they just keep repeating the same blah, blah, blah. Where's Higgins? What about the butt dials? What about what happened? Whatever. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to get his life back. I have no idea where the guy is. So what about the butt dials? Why did Higgins? Oh my God. Like that, it's not even in the realm of what we're talking about. There are some people, I still believe it happened in the basement. There's no evidence of that, but you just keep going ahead and believing that, right? Just like Sue O'Connell, let me tell you, lucky. I've never seen a witness as good. Let's bring on the next defense witness. What did you see? I didn't see anything. What did you? I didn't hear anything. Oh, he's unbelievable. I've never seen a witness so brilliant. Oh my God. I mean, they're just impossible. No, I don't know. I'm going to repeat. I'm not even going to say the jury got it wrong. I'm telling you, there's something wrong with this whole thing. And the more we see of what's going on, there's got to be more to this. And there is the wrongful death. And I will find out. I'll try to get an answer on that. And I'm sure tomorrow I could get an answer on that. I would be surprised. Like, I don't understand why you would limit it to 50,000. But I don't know that much about it. I will find out, though. I mean, I would think, you think of John was 46. Let's just say he was going to work. I know a little bit. I mean, you're going to work for the next 20 years. So he was deprived of all of his earnings of all that time. So something's got to get the basement. My God, the basement. Did we say basement? We meant garage. Oh, now it's a garage. But there was no collision. Why would we think there was a collision? Oh, you mean because she was saying I hit him? Oh, that's a good point. What about the broken tail light? Oh, that's right. Why would I like the people? Why would you think she hit him? I don't know. Kind of like her saying I hit him, and then also she had a broken tail light, and then he was found in a debris field of broken tail light. I mean, it's just I like these people. Pamela likes the shades. I like these people of there was there's no way he was hit by a vehicle. Like, listen, he didn't fall out of a fucking airplane. I mean, excuse my F bomb. Sorry, it's a Sunday. He didn't fall out of an airplane, right? Like it's these people. I can't relate to these people that say there's no way he was hit by like what are you talking about? Of course he was hit by a vehicle. What it's not. I will do that, Tanya. I will. It's not easy. And how about they have, thank you, Tanya. I will let the O'Keefes know that. How about they have no say? See, that's the thing. Karen, like, I will never stop fighting for him. She gets to pick who plays John in the movie. I am very uncomfortable with that. The story of a love story. You know, they'll show the actor, hey, Karen, if you're sober, drive over. Um, you know, talk of marriage, show them at a jeweler downtown Canton, looking at rings, the whole thing. Until one night, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no, it'll be totally thrown out. One thing you notice, all of you, you notice just how arrogant they are. I can't believe how positive these people are. They're just so positive about it. But I also, as I've told you, I like to focus on Karen Reed, her actions, and the more, and I want to be very clear. I mean, I think people underestimate. I think they've underestimated Alan Jackson all along. Absolutely. And I have no idea. I have no idea. I actually I don't have a much interest in that. I have no idea. You know, beach dance, you seem to ask a lot of questions, but I don't see anything attached to it. So we're gonna have to limit people to like you don't just keep firing questions. I'm not doing a press conference here. So I think someone's gonna go in timeout just for a few minutes. Yep, there we go. Sometimes it happens. Um, I think a lot of them, well, they're going to wait for, I know. Well, you know, Rocco, he wrote something. Now, listen, I've always said someone was providing him with talking points. Here's the script. There's Newton Wellness. Maybe to make a statement? Possible. I'll find out, Newton. That's a very good question. Very, very possible. I maintain that Nick Rocco, that someone would, folks, it's not like 10 things. It's like, here's 3 things or 5 things to say when you're going to be on TV. And he got really upset, like, oh, talking points? You're saying I got talking points? And then he posted something someone sent me on X where he said, I knew this would happen. NEW. Okay. Now, listen, I get it. You know, I don't know how people talk to text, whatever, but I mean, that tells you all you need to know. He doesn't know the difference between KNEW or NEW. That tells me it's someone getting 50,000 is the minimum required in order to file the complaint. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be holding it to that. I would think, I would think it's 1 million. He was supposed to be the guardian of those 2 children, plus working, plus his Boston police pension. I think that's the minimum, and then maybe the jury decides. But I don't think you come out with a number. Again, if you watch The Truth versus Alex Jones, the parents in, well, actually, the Simpson case, I don't think at the beginning of it was announced how much it was for. I think the jury then decides, I think, within a range. I mean, they're not going to say 100 million, but I don't know. We'll find out. We have time on that. All right. Listen, thank you. Yeah, 5 million. No. I mean, couldn't they get some of the movie proceeds? Again, this stuff is so far down the line, possible, but unless she files it under a trust, or sometimes in these situations, these people declare bankruptcy and then you can't get any money out of them. And then maybe she becomes an employee. I'm just thinking out loud. I have no idea. Becomes an employee of Alan, and then he's just paying her. I mean, O.J. Simpson was always trying to find ways to hide the money. It can happen. All right. Now, listen, folks, we're back tomorrow, 1 o'clock, and then 4:30. Thank you on this Sunday night. We'll keep it rolling.